We are counting down to Sister Mentors' 25th anniversary in fall 2022.
Welcome to the Sister Mentors podcast. This is an exciting time for us. Sister Mentors has been nurturing the next generation of women of color leaders for 25 years. Our work centers the needs and dreams of women and girls of color in the face of deep-seated institutional inequities found in the educational system. The lives of over 100 women and girls of color have been changed by Sister Mentors. These women and girls have evolved in astounding ways, and with the help of Sister Mentors, they are on their way to earning higher education degrees, particularly PhDs. On this podcast, I will speak to some of the mentors and mentees about their lives and educational journeys. These women and girls will tell their moving stories of who they are, where they come from, and how Sister Mentors was instrumental in keeping them on their educational paths. In this episode, we have one of the founding women of Sister Mentors, Dr. Judi Moore Latta. Dr. Moore Latta was there in the beginning when it was all simply a group of women offering accountability to each other as they wrote their dissertations. I am your host, Camila Adams. Thank you for joining me as we celebrate the bold past and fierce future of Sister Mentors and count down to the 25th anniversary here on the Sister Mentors podcast.
I call myself one of the grits. That's
Yes.
a girl's raised in the South.
I love it.
And I must confess that that's not original. I did hear somebody say that, and I'm like, that's who I am, because I'm very much kind of shaped and formed by my Southern upbringing, my kind of growing up experience. So I'm excited to be here, and I like to tell people that I am the daughter of Laverne Moore, who was a colored teacher in the segregated South.
Oh, wow.
And she was the daughter of Cornelia, who was a domestic worker in the pretend not to be segregated North. And she was the daughter of Julia, who was found in a cornfield as a baby in the mid 1800s, abandoned in a basket.
Wow.
She was adopted by a family and raised by that family. So I very much understand that I'm a child of grace, and that there are so many things that have just made a difference. I also am the daughter of Oscar Moore, who was a coach and a professor at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee. And he was the son of Fitzgerald, who was an immigrant who came to this country from Barbados. He and his wife, Drusilla, came from Barbados at the turn of the last century. And then Fitzgerald was the son of Prince, who was a sugar farmer in Barbados. So I understand a lot of cultural perspectives in terms of immigration and segregation, and all of those things kind of come together. And I start there to think about my earliest experiences in kind of my own educational journey, because all of that informed who I was and who I am. So I grew up on the campus of Florida A&M in Tallahassee, and I started in kindergarten, going kindergarten through 12th grade at the same school, which was, it started as Lucy Moten Elementary School. And I had all Black teachers.
Oh.
And I had all Black classmates. And so from K through 12, I was in the middle of an experience where people were telling me that you can do anything you want to do. You can be anything you want to be. You have all kinds of possibilities and nothing is impossible. Now, growing up with that kind of experience, you can't help but say, okay, right, I can do this. So it was a very small school. It was on the campus, as I said, it was a demonstration school on the campus of Florida A&M University. In my class, from kindergarten through 12th, I had at most 40 students, 40 other classmates. So there were, and most of us started in kindergarten and graduated together.
Wow.
So my earliest memories of education were that, thoughts about education were connected with the idea that things were possible, that there were possibilities. I graduated from high school and went to Hampton. It was then Hampton Institute. It's now Hampton University, and that was a place that was at the time predominantly Black. It's still, of course, an HBCU.
Once Dr. Moore Latta graduated, she started teaching English composition at Washington Technical Institute. One of her students wanted to get creative with a writing assignment and instead do a video project. Dr. Moore Latta agreed and was so impressed by the end result that she decided radio and television was where she was supposed to be.
Ended up going from radio into television, again, knowing nothing about television, but again, becoming a student, open to incredible mentors, first at the local CBS affiliate here, then at the NBC network, some amazing people. I was a student all the way through with my eyes just like, oh, okay, fine, which is how I ended up getting into radio. I eventually was hired by National Public Radio as their first education reporter. And then I became executive producer of special programs and did some other things. So
yeah, you have credits, producing credits of like more than 70 radio and television documentaries, and one of them that we were to highlight this in this episode today is about the year 1994. You won a 1994 Peabody Award for the radio documentary series Wade in the Water, African American Sacred Music Traditions. Wow. And this is a 26-part documentary. Is that correct?
A 26-part series. Absolutely. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Absolutely the hardest.
How long did it take you how long was production? Like, how long were you working on this from inception
Forever. It was very long. It was very difficult, but it was so rewarding. Mm-hmm. And I learned so much. So, Wade in the Water kind of came about as a result of the incredible work of the brilliant Dr. Bernice Johnson Reagan, who was who's a historian, musician, but also Smithsonian Institution curator, director, and kind of just amazing woman that she was. But she, for many, many years, had been curating in her body of work at the Smithsonian. She had been curating African American sacred music, and she had been gathering and she'd been amassing scholars and working with people in across the nation with that. So I'm trying to think when it was in the 80s, late 80s, when I was at NPR, she approached me because we had I had worked with her. I'd done some interviews with her, but we also knew each other from various other kind of venues. And she approached me and she said, I want to curate this body of African American sacred music on radio. Well, that, of course, had never been done. It ended up leading to a partnership between between NPR and the Smithsonian. It was the first ever partnership. But it was, and Bernice became the conceptual producer of the project, and I became the senior producer. There was a team of incredible, mostly women, who kind of formed the basis for the production team, and they were all Black.
Wow.
So what happened was that over the course of 4 years, then we traveled the country. And we went into all kinds of communities, went into very small communities in Georgia and Florida and Alabama and, those kind of places. But we also went into places in Chicago and Los Angeles and New York and Washington, D.C. We were recording choirs and individuals and soloists. We had hundreds of hours of tapes.
Oh my goodness.
And that was in the day when we did, the old traditional kind of, tapes. It wasn't digital. This was digital. So we had hours and hours of tapes for each one of these. And then we needed to get them down to, perhaps a bite that would be 2 to 3 minutes within there. So,
oh my goodness.
Anyway, the series, so it was difficult because there was a going back and forth, but we figured out how to do it, and the figuring out how to do it was something that I ended up learning a lot about, and then later writing about in my dissertation.
And that's what she did. In 1997, Dr. Moore Latta decided to go back to school to earn her PhD. She would write her dissertation on the politics of production, using her experiences in making Wade in the Water as research. It was during this time when she crossed paths with Dr. Shireen Lewis, founder of SisterMentors, who was starting a dissertation support group.
And now I had decided I'm going back. I'm actually in the PhD program, very different from the earlier experiences I had had in education, because I was in a program where there were only 3 or 4 people of color who were students among, dozens and dozens of others. And and there was only 1 person of color who was on the faculty at that time. Now, of course, this department has drastically changed now. And in fact, one of the people who was with me at the time has now become the chair of the department and is doing Psyche Williams-Forson, and she's doing a tremendous job over there. But at that time, when we were both students, I was working. We had to, of course, do our classwork and coursework, and then we had to take comps and everything, and then do proposal and write a dissertation. That was the trajectory. But I was at the course, I had finished my coursework and had done my comps, and I was getting ready to write my proposal for my dissertation. And I'm thinking, and I was just running into all kinds of roadblocks and things, and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be really just impossible here. So the woman of possibilities is saying, oh, this is going to be impossible. I'm telling myself that. Right. And somebody who knew me called and said, listen, there's a group, there's a sister who is starting a dissertation support group, and you might be interested in it. So I said, listen, give me anything. So that evening, I drove down to D.C., 14th and 14th and U Streets, Northwest, and went into Sister Space and Brooks, and it was and there I found Shireen and 3 other sisters, and they were sitting there, and it was amazing. I mean, going into Sister Space and Books at that time was just so incredible, because it was an eclectic kind of place. It was a place where the owners had kind of gathered people. It was a gathering place for women, but it was also a place where you could go and think about life and the like. So, but in one of the back rooms, we met. We all had different backgrounds. We had different experiences. We were of different ages. We were in different schools. We had different disciplines. Wow. But we had one resolve. It's like, let us get this thing done. Right. And I remember that one of the people, and we sat around in a circle, and one of the people said, I don't think this is possible. And she said, oh, yes, this is possible. We're going to get done. And we're going to make sure each one of us will get done. And it's kind of like, okay, I'm saying, all right, I like what I'm hearing here. This is it was a kind of a shared resolve.
Mm-hmm.
What I witnessed in that room that I think has kind of just continued with SisterMentors in that birthing moment was the appreciation for the whole person. Mm. So not just the academic journey, but also the emotional experiences, right. The kinds of things that you feel in your body and in your mind and in your spirit and and in your cultural kind of everything, it was all coming together. So at that point that night we decided, okay, we need to do this and we need to meet on a regular basis. We'll meet every month, probably every 3 weeks. And somebody said, well, we need to set some goals. It's like, all right. So we decided that we would set our own goals. Mm-hmm. Each person would set her own goals and that everybody else would hold her to those goals.
I love it.
That was really something. So we started setting goals and then it was like I would set my goal and then I'm like, oh, Lord, this is what I said I got to do. So I got to get myself together. So I'll have it ready. Right. I can't go in there and say I failed.
Right. It's about, you have that accountability.
Yeah. So one of the things one part for me was also writing of the ritual that we committed, the ritual opening and ritual closing that we did each time. So, but it was a special. What was
the? May I ask what the ritual opening and closing is, or is that a secret?
Sure. Listen. So it was what we would do when we gathered is that we would we'd say these words as a kind of collective resolve, and then as we parted at the end, after we'd done everything and critiqued each other and cried and just tried to justify and then then we'd say this other thing. So I can tell you what the opening ritual was. It says, as we work together, may your spirit be within us. And as we gather, may we be a blessing to one another. Let us keep the peace and stay the course.
Wow.
That was the opening ritual. And then the closing ritual was, as we part, may our heads be clear, may our hearts be strong, may our resolve continue. Let us keep the faith and stay the course.
Wow.
So I understand from Shireen that they still do that. Some of what I had learned in the process of doing the PhD, but also in the options that it opened, options for doors that it opened. Mm-hmm. So in many places there were things that required a PhD, not right. that it required the knowledge that I had
right.
as a PhD, but it required the degree.
Right.
So for example, so I did become a chair of my department. I did go on to do a number of other things where people were looking for someone who had that degree. Mm-hmm. So I think, in a lot of ways, it kind of prepared me for options, is what it did.
So now SisterMentors is counting down to its 25th anniversary. What comes to mind when you hear that?
Wow. I am so excited. The thing about that is it's hard to believe. I think about my own journey. Mm-hmm. And I think about how grateful I am to SisterMentors, to that original dissertation support group, and then how it expanded and with its giving spirit. I think about the incredible leader that Shireen Lewis has been, and how she has just kind of pushed and nudged and pulled and tugged women in girls and women into places where they never dreamed they would be. And I think about how incredible a thing that is. And who's somebody who means, for me, Shireen read every word of my dissertation, and she made comments and did all kinds of things and whatever, and tore it up and did all, and asked me questions and forced me and pushed me, and I'm like, well, that's what I meant to say, and so and then forced me to go back and rethink, so much so that when I turned in my dissertation to my committee, I had no corrections. I had no.
Wow.
It was because it had already been torn up by the system, already. But I think about that kind of real love that people have for not just kind of getting their own, but for passing it on. And so for Black women and brown women and girls, who may be stuck or on the edge, when we come up on this 25th, I'm thinking about how grateful I am that there are people who are willing to pass it on, yes. Who are willing to connect with each other, to support each other, and to pass it forward.
That's amazing. And this is a definite need in society in itself. And that's something that we should all strive to do, is to be able to pass something along, pass something forward, pay it forward, and be able to share our knowledge base or experiences with other people. For more information on Sister Mentors, a project of EduSeed, please visit sistermentors.org. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as Sister Mentors. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts, and don't be afraid to share. This podcast was produced by Rugged Angel Productions for Sister Mentors.